Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Pat Gillum Sams, and I am the chair of the Social Action Committee for the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. This is our Delta Days at City Hall virtual luncheon, and we are delighted to have you with us this morning. We're going to get our program started by inviting our chapter chaplain to lead us in prayer. Joni Ellis Hughes.
Good morning and welcome. Would you join me in a word of prayer by bowing your heads? Gracious God, our Father, we are so thankful to have another opportunity to come before you, O God, to honor you, to lift you up, and just to say thank you. We thank you for another day that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for all the bountiful blessings you have given us, O God. We are so thankful for all that you have done. We thank you for allowing us to be in this panel today. We thank you for our great sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We thank you for our 22 founders who thought it not robbery to be socially active, who wanted to make a difference in the lives of others. Now, God, we thank you right now for all of our participants, for our city council members who are represented here, and all of our panelists and sorors who are represented here. We ask that you would give us a collective knowledge that will allow us to come up with practical yet simple solutions that would allow all Americans, both locally, statewide, and nationally, to have all the opportunities that our great country affords. Father, we know that these are unprecedented times, both in our healthcare arena and socially, but we ask that you would bond us together as a people. Help us to be collective in our ideas, in our solutions. We ask that you would give us the ability to be able to work together peacefully and calmly. We ask a special blessing for all of our leaders here in our city of Jacksonville, in our state of Florida, and nationally. As we move forward through this great panel, help us to think collaboratively and collectively. Give us a knowledge base that would help us move forward with ideas and solutions that would be pleasing not only to those who they serve, but pleasing in your sight. In the matchless mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you so very much, Joni, for that very inspirational and timely prayer. At this time, I would like to welcome Ladidra Ellis, our chapter second vice president, who will give us the welcome and occasion for today.
Thank you, Pat. Greetings to our keynote speaker, Representative Val Demings, our distinguished panel participants, honored guests, and of course, members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to our Delta Days at City Hall virtual luncheon, presented by the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. As many of you know, our sorority has always placed great importance on an awareness of political issues and events and active involvement and participation in the political process. In fact, the very motivation for the founding of our great sisterhood was as a means of representing our community in peacefully demanding the voice of women, particularly Black women, be heard and counted. Today, as part of the sorority's 5-point programmatic thrust, we continue this commitment to social action through several national and local events. In 1989, the sorority's National Social Action Committee established Delta Days at the nation's capital, an annual legislative conference designed to increase members' involvement in the national public policymaking process. During this innovative and inspiring event, sorority members from around the country descend upon our nation's capital to participate in various activities, including legislative briefings, issue forums, and advocacy skills development. To also have impact and input on global issues of mutual concern, the sorority subsequently established Delta Days at the United Nations, where each year its members gather at the UN headquarters in New York to attend regular briefings and develop greater understanding and knowledge of United Nations activities, which is then disseminated to members around the country and the community at large. While political involvement on the national and international level is important, it's been said that all politics is local. So it would be a natural expectation to see the sororities' influence and impact in and on state and local government as the voices of its members are heard and their presence felt. In addition to the aforementioned national activities, sorority members also conduct other activities, such as Delta Days at the state capitol, Delta Days at City Hall, and Delta Days at the school board. Here in Duval County, this is the 5th year the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter has developed dialogue and discussion with local leaders through its Delta Days at City Hall. In those hollowed halls, council members and staffers alike know when they see the ladies in the red suits walking those marble halls, it can only mean one thing: the Deltas are in the house. But although the political and social prowess of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and its events are undeniable, it would be a tragic oversight not to recognize the additional significance of this day as we celebrate the sorority's Founders Day. This illustrious sisterhood was established 108 years ago on the campus of Howard University on this very day in 1913 by 22 collegiate women who wanted to use their collective strength to promote academic excellence and provide assistance to those in need. In March of 1913, barely 3 weeks after taking this revolutionary action, several founders of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated engaged in the sorority's first public act by marching in the historic suffragist parade under the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated banner. Although the organizers of the march wanted to relegate these brave women to the back of the parade, they would not accept such denigration. On February 9th, 1946, this same steadfast commitment to service led 7 dynamic women to found the Alpha Iota Sigma chapter, currently known as the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter. Over the past nearly 75 years, the public service programs and initiatives established at that time have been maintained and enhanced as the role and presence of Delta in Duval County has expanded and solidified. So as we gather here in this brand new world of virtual interaction, after a morning of productive meetings with our local representatives, we are so honored to have you all here to continue these discussions and formulate strategies that will affect and empower our community. With this in mind, we welcome you today, not only as honored guests, but as partners in the ongoing work that is to be done. And while many advancements have been made over recent years, including the election of the first African American president and vice president, we cannot let up and we cannot stop. For as the poet Robert Frost once wrote, "The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." Today, we keep the promise to our ancestors, to our founders, and to our communities, not only not to sleep, but to continue to work together, arm in arm in the struggle with those who also seek to empower our communities, socially and politically. So on behalf of our chapter president, Aurelia Ray Williams, and the 388 members of the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we thank you for your participation and encourage you to keep working, leading, and making a difference here and throughout our country. We will now have a special video greeting from the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, the Honorable Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Hi, I'm Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, and to all of my wonderful, brilliant, beautiful sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, happy Founders Day.
Thank you so very much, Dee Dee and Sora, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Now, I have the esteemed pleasure of introducing our powerhouse panel, and we have lots of questions, so we're going to get to it. I would like to welcome Dr. Diana L. Green. Dr. Green became the superintendent of the Duval County Public Schools, the 20th largest school district in the nation, on July 1st, 2018, and serves 130,000 students within 200 schools and manages a $1.7 billion budget. Dr. Green's tenure as superintendent of Duval County Public Schools has been marked with significant accomplishments. District academic performance has continued to improve. Duval is now within 1% of becoming an A district under rigorous school grade accountability system in Florida. The district also achieved another historically high graduation rate, and in less than 1 week, Dr. Green and her leadership team converted more than 120,000 children, 13,000 teachers and staff, and 160 schools to an online virtual learning environment, Duval Homeroom, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic in spring 2020. Most notably, Dr. Green unified community support for schools, orchestrating the passage of a volunteer surtax to renovate and replace the district's crumbling school infrastructure with a $1.9 billion master facilities plan. These accomplishments and more led the Florida Association of District School Superintendents to select Dr. Green as the 2021 Florida Superintendent of the Year, making her only the second African American woman to receive this honor. During her 33-year career as an educator, Dr. Green has spent her time as a teacher, assistant principal, as well as in curriculum and staff development, as well as a senior executive leader. She is married to James Green, and she is the proud mother of 2 sons, Alden and Joshua. Help me welcome Dr. Diana Green. Next, I would like to introduce Chief Dolores O'Neill. Chief O'Neill joined the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office in September 1997 and currently holds the rank of Chief of Police Services. During her 23-year tenure with the Sheriff's Office, Chief O'Neill has served in various areas of the agency, including, but not limited to, patrol, investigations, personnel, and professional standards, community affairs, and special events. Chief O'Neill has earned several accolades, both in the community and from the Sheriff's Office. She is the first African American female to hold the rank of chief in the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. And in 2019, She was recognized by State Attorney Melissa Nelson as the 2019 Law Enforcement Officer of the Year for her leadership in reducing crime in Zone 5. She is a graduate of Leadership Jacksonville, the 2018 class, and I'll just take personal privilege, the second best class of Leadership Jacks, because of course 2021 would be the best class of Leadership Jacks. She is the proud wife and bonus mother and a graduate of the University of North Florida and Jean Ribault High School. Welcome, Chief Dolores O'Neill. Dr. Kelly Tice Wells is a family physician with a background in public health who serves as Florida Blues Senior Medical Director for Public Affairs. In her role, she oversees the company's health equity strategy and has responsibilities in the area of corporate, social responsibility, and public health surveillance. In addition, Dr. Tice Wells is the clinical lead for Florida Blues COVID-19 response. Early in her medical training, Dr. Tice Wells became interested in addressing health disparities and delivering culturally competent care. Before joining Florida Blue in 2018, she spent 17 years as a public health physician, serving in numerous leadership roles, including that of county health officer and state medical director for the Florida Department of Health. She is passionate about health education and she enjoys mentoring and community involvement. She is a proud graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. She is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and most proud to be the mom of Noah, Maya, Olivia, and Christian. Help me welcome Dr. Tice Wells. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So glad to have you here in our virtual studio, our virtual space this morning. Thank you for joining us. As I said, when I was introducing you, we have a powerhouse panel and we appreciate you all for being here, but we have lots of questions. So we're going to get to it. And we're going to start with you, Dr. Green. I mentioned in your bio that you were instrumental in getting that half-cent penny surtax passed. So the question is, how will the community and schools benefit from that half-cent penny tax? And will the community have any say in that process?
Well, first, I want to again reiterate how happy to be here with you and to celebrate on your Founders Day. This referendum has been in the works almost 2 years. And so part of moving forward with that referendum was going out to the community and sharing the master's facilities plan. We had over 22 community meetings with interested stakeholders on how to implement that master's facilities plan. That plan ended up having approximately 28 brand new schools to either replace or part of a consolidation, along with major renovations, modernizations, and one of the very important parts of it is the safety and security. We have remained committed and will be committed to updating every school's safety and security process within 3 years. So every school is unique. So one school may need fencing, another school may need door locks for all of their classrooms changed out so that we can ensure that when our students and staff come to school, we are putting them in the safest environment possible. Part of this process is an independent oversight committee that is members of the community. Actually, they were just introduced Monday night at the school board meeting. That group will be the oversight to ensure that the district is spending the dollars the way that we stated in the referendum and that we have put out in our plan. And so anyone from the community can see the master's facilities plan. It is on our website, ourduvalschools.org. You can see the plan. You can see the timeline for projects, and you can also see every individual school's plan. So if you are interested in William M. Raines High School, you just click on Raines High School, and that plan opens up and tells the community with referendum dollars, all of these projects will be done for that school. And the project for William M. Raines is a replacement school. So it will be one of the schools we will completely replace.
Dr. Green, you said a couple of things I just want to unpack a bit. There was a lot of conversation prior to the successful passage of the surtax, and one of which was closing schools and consolidating schools. So can you talk a little bit about that? Is that still on the table? Are there schools that are still in the process of being considered to be closed, even though we have this surtax passed?
Well, currently that process is complete for the first phase. There are schools that we will consolidate, and those consolidations were based on a review from a third-party engineering firm that indicated that the schools, even if we updated them, they would still be ineffective, inefficient. We would end up spending more money than considering consolidation. The things that went into a consolidation was the deficiencies of the physical building that needed to be addressed, and the cost of those deficiencies, as well as the enrollment. Many of these schools are really small. Their enrollment is at a place that they are not effectively utilizing all the space of that facility, and that facility has major issues. Again, if they go to that website, they can see the consolidations that are in place. However, I do want to point out, because of COVID-19, that has impacted our student enrollment. We have more families now either choosing to participate in Duval Homeroom or our virtual school, which is Duval Instructional Virtual Academy, and then third, our homeschool. And if those students do not return when the following school year opens up, then we may have to come back and review all of our schools with our school board, because schools that didn't have low enrollment when we were going through this process are now exhibiting low enrollment. However, we don't want to jump the gun. We want to give those schools an opportunity, once we get beyond the pandemic, for that enrollment to build back up. But that's just something that's out there that we have to be cognizant of.
Thank you, Dr. Green. That was going to be another question, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Before we leave the topic of the half-cent surtax that was passed, a big part of the conversation as well was charter schools. How does that half-cent tax impact charter schools, or does it?
It does impact charter schools. The legislatures passed a law last year that indicated any school district that passes a surtax, charter schools must receive their fair share. So charter schools will receive dollars from the referendum. It is based on their enrollment. There are some other pieces of criteria they must meet to receive those dollars. But we have estimated that charter schools will receive, over the 15-year period, somewhere in the neighborhood of approximately $350 million shared between all the charter schools.
Thank you so much. So we want to turn our focus a little bit to you, Chief O'Neill. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. And again, I'm very honored to be here with you on your Founders Day. So thank you again for inviting me.
Well, we appreciate all that you do in the community and making us feel very safe. So thank you, Chief Hill.
Thank you.
Police officers are sworn in to protect and serve. Are there any consequences for violating the public trust, committing crimes against the public while in uniform? We've heard a lot
Absolutely.
about funding the police. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So, integrity is the one thing that we have, and it's very important for us to protect that. So, absolutely. So, we have what we call an integrity unit as well as an internal affairs unit. So, the integrity unit investigates all of the cases against officers and all of Jacksonville Sheriff's Office employees that have committed criminal acts. The internal affairs unit, they investigate all the administrative acts. So since Sheriff Mike Williams has been in office, there have been 60 employees that have been arrested and terminated from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So, I know that sounds like a big number, and it is. It's way too many for us. However, that is part of us being transparent with the community, as well as saying that we will not tolerate, officers or any of the employees committing acts, criminal acts against the public or anyone else. So absolutely, that's one of our most important things to us.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to come back. I have some follow-up questions to that.
Okay.
But I want to invite Dr. Kelly Tice-Wells into this conversation. Hello, Soror Tice-Wells. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming. So, COVID-19, we've all been in this space for the last 10 months. It seems like an eternity, and now there's hope, or it appears that there is hope with this vaccine. So talk to us about the safety. I think in our community, there is a perception that it happened too quickly, that it is politically motivated. We just want to hear from a trusted voice. What should we know? What should we believe? Should we get the flu shot in the same time frame as the vaccination for COVID? Should my mom get it? I mean, what should we know about this vaccine?
Very good. And thank you for the opportunity to address that. It's unfortunate that because in the setting of dealing with and discussing a disease that has impacted our community so significantly, where we are almost 4 times as likely to be hospitalized and almost 3 times as likely to die from it, and certainly are at greater risk of being exposed to COVID. It's unfortunate that misinformation and really a history that has bred mistrust of the health system leads us to be reluctant to be vaccinated. So I welcome the opportunity just to provide some accurate information. I think that's necessary, and this may be an ongoing conversation. Let me start by saying, and all my comments to follow should be considered in this context. My parents, who are 81 years old, have both received their first dose of the Moderna vaccine. I can't give any higher assurance about my confidence in this vaccine than to say that the people I treasure the most have already begun their series. Now, to specifically talk about vaccine development, it does seem quick. Not only was it quick, but it is new vaccine technology, which I think even for those of us in the clinical field raised a few red flags for us. And here's what you need to know about that. Number one, the short time frame to develop this vaccine didn't leave out any of the necessary action steps to ensure safe and appropriate development. It just was done on a shorter timeline. And you can do that in the setting of a pandemic with resources that were dedicated to accomplish that, and clinicians and researchers across the globe who have been looking at this now for more than 10 months. Secondly, there is a professional association of minority medical professionals, the National Medical Association, that, that is the body to which I look for information and support and confidence levels. And that group of clinicians, back in early fall of last year, when the vaccines were under development, recognized that they needed to be prepared to have a position on this. So they convened a task force last September, and represented on this task force were pharmacists, clinical researchers, public health professionals, surveillance experts. And that independent task force reviewed not just the process of vaccine development, but also reviewed all of the safety data that was presented to the FDA in order for those two vaccines to receive emergency use authorization. And that task force determined two important things. One, that the safety and efficacy is what it is reported to be. And two, and probably most importantly, that there was enough representation in the phase 3 clinical trials that were performed by both Pfizer and Moderna. There's enough minority representation to ensure that that data can be applied to minority groups. And I think that's key. We worry about underrepresentation, and underrepresentation certainly hurts us. But in this instance, I think there was enough presence and participation by minorities in the study for us to be confident in what has been put forth. So, I know we'll have a little more dialogue about this, and I can answer more specific questions, certainly as time allows. But I think those are important pieces for folks to understand. This is safe. And in truth, I'm starting to move forward with a hashtag. This is our shot. This is our shot to begin to protect our communities, our loved ones. This is our shot.
So Dr. Kelly Tice Wells, I have a follow-up question to that. So the COVID virus isn't new to us. The 19 is the new piece. So we've done some studies prior to. Am I correct in that, or is that myth?
Well, so the virus that causes the disease in COVID-19 is short for coronavirus disease, and 19 is just the year we started to see this illness. The virus itself actually has a different name. It's called SARS-CoV-2. SARS-CoV-2 is a member of a family of viruses called coronaviruses. And the typical members of this family of viruses causes colds. So if you've had a cold, you've probably been infected with some member of the coronavirus family. Other members of the coronavirus family are the viruses that cause MERS and SARS, but not very many of them have caused severe disease. This one in particular is difficult because not only does it cause a severe respiratory illness, it also can be spread before you develop symptoms, right? And it's rather contagious. So that's the reason we're seeing such huge global numbers related to it because of this virus. So I think scientists, to answer your question specifically, science is familiar with coronaviruses, what they do, how they behave, and how to fight them. The work around this specific virus really didn't begin until the early part of this year when the virus became evident.
So Moderna or Pfizer? Why should I care?
Yeah, I'm not sure you should. I think Moderna is going to get a little more exposure initially because it doesn't have to be kept so cold. So there'll be more community providers that will have access to that particular vaccine. And each one of these requires 2 doses, okay? The dose spacing for Moderna is 28 days versus a shorter time frame for Pfizer, 21 days. So I just think just in terms of sort of ease and facilitation of vaccine administration, Moderna is probably going to get a little more press. If Pfizer had been available to my mom and dad, they'd have a Pfizer vaccine in their arms.
Okay. Dr. Green, I want to kind of bring you into this conversation as it relates to the virus that has definitely impacted your world over the last 10 months. What is the rollout plan for your teachers, students, how are you going to keep that environment? Like I told you off camera, I was in one of your schools just this morning, and they're doing a great job with these plexiglass shields, but it's a space with a lot of people in it. So what's the plan for Duval County Public Schools?
Well, currently we have a very strong COVID-19 protocol in all of our schools. Those of you who have been used to volunteering in our schools, you'll know that you can't enter our schools. We're only allowing the people who work there every day to enter into the building. Even parents can only go to a certain location in a school. So we have put in place some very strict protocols. Uh, as we move to the vaccine, we've already partnered with the Department of Health, and we have already vaccinated over 200 of our teachers and employees. And for us, medical personnel is school nurses. We partnered with the Department of Health and were able to have our own site. And once our school nurses were trained and vaccinated, they in turn vaccinated our teachers that met the criteria of 65 or older. We are in the process of developing a plan when teachers as a whole are in the criteria, that we would, again, partner with the Department of Health to ensure that we can get our teachers vaccinated as quickly as possible. I have been advocating for our employees. This is the one group that, even though we have law enforcement and fire and rescue, teachers are the only group that their audience is inside the room with them at all times. It isn't like they can, oh, let me take a break, I'm gonna go here, there. No, they're taking anywhere from 18 to 25 people with them when they are moving about inside the school building. So we have been very aggressive. We're probably one of the few counties that actually moved forward with trying to vaccinate our employees that met the state criteria. And so once the state tells us, oh, this is the next level of criteria, I work with my team to say, oh, well, who in our organization meets that criteria? So we go out and try to advocate, hey, we can deliver these vaccines for our people, support us, and we will also be willing to support the community. We talked about underrepresented communities. We have already talked with DOH and said, we're willing to open up one of our schools in the underrepresented community to vaccinate community members as well as employees of Duval County Public Schools. And we think that developing this partnership, one, DCPS has a great opportunity to give back to the community not in reference to that they gave to us in this referendum, but when you're when you're the second largest employer in a community, we should be members of the community. We should be advocates in the community. And through COVID-19, our teachers have done a phenomenal job. Our administrators have done a phenomenal job. And continuing that process will only make the school district stronger as an organization and also as a resource to the community.
That's some good information, Dr. Green. Thank you for sharing that. I sure hope that partnership progresses and you're able to achieve that goal. That's awesome. Thank you. Chief O'Neill. We
Yes.
heard a lot of conversation over the summer. I kind of mentioned it earlier about defunding the police, and Jacksonville has had some high media attention over the last few years.
Yes.
Body cams and footage.
Mhm.
If it's released to the public in a reasonable amount of time, do you feel that it could avoid some of these protests and all of these conversations? And do you feel that the current protocol within JSO is appropriate and what it should be around this subject of body cams and transparency?
Well, that's a really good question. So the sheriff has committed to releasing the body worn camera no later than 90 days from the incident. So what we don't want, I know sometimes, people want it instantly. However, is an investigation that needs to happen. So we have changed our policy to that 90 days from the incident, based on some of the events that happened during the summer. The state attorney's office has an independent policy regarding the release of the evidence. And so they could release it sooner because we do share the video with them. But because we want to ensure that the investigation is done properly and that there's no bias against anyone, we do it from 90 days. I think that is very reasonable because really we want to make sure that the case is done right. We want to make sure that the outcome is what it is supposed to be. It's not about hiding anything or anything like that. It's really just about making sure that that the victim or suspect in the case actually has a fair trial, as well as the officers.
Chief O'Neill, as we indicated a little earlier, we've been visiting with city council members over the last day and a half, and I was aware, and this is a good education process, that you send out counselors or mental health personnel on some calls that come into the police department. Can you talk to us? Because again, the term defund the police, I think gets a bad rap, because what I take away from that is I want the police to come when I call them, but I want to make sure, depending on the nature of the call, I have subject matter experts and people that are trained to handle the situation. So can you talk to us about what that means to you, that whole defund the police, and what does the JSO institute right now from a holistic perspective?
Right. Well, I agree with you. We want the right professionals to respond to the calls when we are talking about, especially like mental health subjects. So our officers do receive training, critical incident training when they're in the academy. We get it on a yearly basis during our training. But we also have mental health experts that do come out on calls with us as well. When people talk about defunding the police, and I know there's another way that they're going about it now, saying, well, it's not really about defunding the police, it's about giving money to other agencies such as, mental health resource agencies. Well, it would still be taking money from our budget to ensure that they have money as well. But one of the things that we have to realize is that when we're defunding the police or moving money from one area to another, that affects the sheriff's office in a couple of ways. One is about training, which, we need to have more training on de-escalation. We already incorporate that in our training. However, that money goes towards training on community-based policing, mental health, domestic violence training, all of that. So if you move money from that, then you're moving money from our training, as well as the hiring of more officers. So one of the things that when we're talking about defunding my hope is that when we're looking at that, we are going to be incorporating the sheriff's office in the conversation about how we can make sure that we are maintaining the standards that we need to ensure that we have enough officers to respond to the calls with mental health employees. Because one of the things that we know is that a lot of the times when we have those calls to those type of events, is that people have weapons, and we don't want that mental health person going alone. We want to be able to go with them, and that's going to take not taking money away from the sheriff's office, but that's going to be that we really actually need to be hiring more officers so that we can make that happen. We need to ensure that we have enough officers here so we can have more of them to respond in the neighborhood, to do more community-based policing so that we can reduce the number of calls that we have coming in anyway that are involved with domestic violence and mental health and those type of things. So what I'm hoping is that when we start to have those conversations, that City Council, who has been a really good counsel to the Sheriff's Office, is that we continue to have conversations to where we're included to see how can we do this together.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chief O'Neill.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Tice Wells, we have the vaccine. We apparently have a lot more of the vaccine than we are getting into the arms of citizens all across this country. Is there a better, more efficient way in your estimation that we could get this done? Can we just take the first vaccine and let everybody have the first vaccine, then do the second vaccine? Do you have to have two? Can we spread it out? What can be done to get all of us as this important vaccination?
Right, that's a great question. I think one of the challenges or the challenge at the moment is supply, right? And there are some ways to increase the vaccine allocation that's available from the federal government to our state. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But we also need to keep sight of the fact that supply isn't the only answer, right? The things that have always driven health disparities and influenced access are still at play here. And we've seen, I don't know if you've seen some of the news reports in our state where, you know, those with privilege have been afforded access to vaccine because they knew who to call in order to gain access. So that continues to happen, particularly because our supply is limited. But we have to, you know, we have to be mindful of that. And what we as community members have to do is ensure that we are consistently asking the right questions. Who in our community is ensuring that there is appropriate access to the members of the minority community to this vaccine? Where are the collaborative clinics and vaccine events that target the minorities? Because a collaboration with a large, company may not provide access, right? It looks good, but it doesn't meet the needs of the community. So we need to be sure we're asking the right questions once vaccine gets to our community. What in terms of first dose, second dose, the federal government was withholding those second doses in order to be sure that there was access, right? They didn't want to get to the point where they didn't have enough to do the required second dose. The Secretary of HHS has now said they're going to not do that anymore and go ahead and ship and allow for just single doses. And as our learning grows, I think you'll see the guidance shift to support it. The first vaccine gives you about 50-60% protection from COVID disease. The second vaccine gets you to 95 or even higher percent protection. So of course we want to get to that end goal. If you've had COVID before, in all likelihood, you get a really robust response with that first shot. So the thinking is that there is kind of more protection than we initially thought with one vaccine. And we may not need to be quite as strict with the 28 and 21 day second dose rules. In fact, if we were to delay that for some period of time, we would probably still see a really robust response when you get your second dose. And so I want folks to understand, you know, it feels like, you know, folks are withholding information from us and, you know, everything is changing, but we are learning this as we go. And you really want to give the clinical experts the opportunity to look at the data that's now available. We've given millions of vaccine around the country. Let's see what that's beginning to look like. And then we can adjust our guidance accordingly. And that's what we're seeing. So I need you to get one shot in your arm. And I need you to, before you leave that facility, ask questions about where you come for your second vaccine. And then those of us who are partnering to support this work, and my hat is off to Dr. Green, who has already stepped up as a community partner who can provide access to some of the targeted populations we need to be thinking about. We need to be asking those questions of our circles. You know, what influencers do you know? And so when you see evidence in our community of a particular partnership or a partnership event, ask yourself, who can't get there, right? Can we really have folks waiting 3 hours in line without access to restrooms? You know, my parents couldn't have done that. And then, so that's number one. And then how do we solve for that? You know, is it to expedite and support a partnership with the Duval County Public School system? What are the solutions? So, yeah, I think the answers are there. And understand too, while we work this out, if you will wear your mask, wash your hands frequently, avoid touching, you know, frequently touched surfaces, keep your hands out of your face, and keep your distance, you will continue to protect yourself from exposure and disease while we wait.
So you said two very important things that I think are worthy of repeating. What I think I heard you say, if I've had COVID-19, I still want to get the vaccine. And once I get the vaccine, both shots, I still want to practice social distancing, and I want to wear my mask, and I want to wash my hands. Correct?
Correct.
Very good. Awesome. Ladies, I still have more questions, but I want to open it up and see if we have any from our audience. So, Kim Holloway, are you there? And are there any questions in the question and answer?
Good afternoon to our special guests and our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us. At this time, Madam Moderator, there are no questions from our viewers.
Well, thank you. So that gives me a little bit more time, ladies. They are trying to cut me off, but I have one last question, and then I want to open it up and just do 1 minute roundtable for you to leave us with any last words and gems for our community. You're all first on many levels and in many spaces as the first African-American woman of color, Black woman in your respective roles currently or in past roles. Tell us what that's like and how are you ensuring that you won't be the last? We are about to have a very historic first in our country next week. How are you going about your daily walk to ensure you won't be the last? Dr. Green?
Oh, I'm sorry. It can be very overwhelming to be the first because the expectations are so high. And as the individual, I don't want to let people down. I want to be very humbled and honored and gracious for receiving the first. But one of the things I try to impart to our leaders and our schools and our district leaders is that you have to behave like you belong there. I wasn't given this. Many people paved the way ahead of me, but there still is this view about women and being African American that you still have to be better than everyone else in the room. You have to be smarter than everyone else in the room. The key is finding that balance that you don't always have to exhibit how smart you are. You don't always have to, put in the face of individuals your knowledge. So I try to really work hard in building solid relationships. My employees, I think for the most part, believe that I care about them because I do. I send it used to be weekly when we were in the very beginning of the pandemic, but now it's more on an as needed or an event-based message. For example, last week, the riot at the Capitol, I sent a message out to all staff members letting them know that, hey, this is one more thing that can provide stress and concern for our students, that I need you to make sure you take care of yourself, and here are the things you need to do. Here are the warning signs we need to make sure we're watching out for our students, because what's happening now is unprecedented. We don't have a playbook, so much for this as school districts. But some of the things that I am doing is being that role model for, like I said, my leaders, whether they're school-based or district-based. I try to reach out to all of my leaders to encourage them to not just be satisfied where you are, but if you want to move up, it's all about preparation, making sure you're preparing yourself for that role, and find that good support group. I didn't get here by myself, and I won't stay here by myself. I have a support group that there are only 3 African-American female superintendents in the state of Florida. And soon, in a couple of months, there'll only be 2. And a year from now, there'll only be 1, and it'll be me. And I'm hoping that there'll be more African-American females that are wanting or desiring to be superintendent, or high-level executive roles in public education, because many of our students look like us, yet they don't see us in executive roles, and even if they do see us, I'm not sure they feel like we are speaking to them. And those are the things that I try to work on and try to improve, because it is very challenging being the first. And you don't want to let not just your community down, but you don't want to let yourself down. And this has to be a calling. If you're not committed to it, then I tell them all the time, then don't seek it out. Please don't make this about money, because they're not paying enough money to do the things or deal with the issues that we're having to deal with. And it really has to be a personal decision. But once you make it, be prepared and know that you have to be confident and resilient and ready to pivot depending on what the situation is, and have that support group to help you through whatever the situations you're dealing with the day-to-day. So I'm going to give a shout out to my husband. He is my biggest fan. He is there even sometimes when I don't want him there. And knowing that allows me to really just be me and be confident in, okay, this week, if I have to work really late, I know that I still have that support group at home and things are working. So it's a balance, and you just have to figure it out and what that balance looks like. And I always tell my leaders, balance doesn't mean equal. Balance means you're good with what you're doing. And you're good with what's happening at home and what's happening in your career.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Green. Chief O'Neill.
Well, I can actually echo a lot of what Dr. Green said. It is a lot of pressure about being the first. So one of the things that my director, he's retired now, and he actually works with Dr. Green, Michael Edwards, always told me from the day that he became my mentor, was that it's really not about you. It's about the people that come behind you. So what you have to do is you let your work ethic speak for itself. You know, there are times when people will say things about you like, oh, you're going to be the token, or you're there because you're a Black female, or you're there because you're a female. You know, people won't believe in you sometimes just because you are a female. But what you have to do is let your work ethic speak for you. And so that is what, through his mentorship and just through some mentorship of some other great women, that I have learned that is very true. So for me, it's about taking what I know and reaching back and helping to develop other women, because that's just so important to me. You know, coming from where I have being even a foster child, even in high school, now I talk to young women about, it's about the choices that you make. You can be dealt this hand today, but it's really about what is it that you really want to do with your life? Because you can do exactly that. Don't let what your circumstances look like today determine what it's going to be tomorrow, because it can be very different, but it's really about your choices that you make. So, being the first, there are a lot of women that came before me that could have held this position. I thank God that He has put me in this position so that I can help other women. But absolutely, I agree with Dr. Green about the balance. I'm very thankful for my husband, because I do work late a lot of nights especially when I was an assistant chief and I worked in Zone 5. There were many nights that I didn't get home till very late. And then sometimes there would be a shooting and I would have to get up and 10, 11 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and get up and head out. And he was always there for me, helping me with whatever I needed. So I'm very, very thankful for that. There's also mentoring. Mentoring is so important. I cannot stress that enough about how important mentoring is. To be a mentor and to have a mentor. So if you don't have one, it's important for you to seek out one. Sometimes people are not just going to come to you and say, hey, I'd like to mentor you. No, it's about your own drive and seeking what it is that you want to do. And you seek that person that you say, hey, you know what? They have what I want to have. And so I want to know, how did they get there? I find that people are way more willing to be a mentor if we just step up and say to them, hey, I'm really interested. And that doesn't mean that they're going to do all the work for you. That doesn't mean if they are in your field that they're going to just give you an easy ride to where they are, because I believe in excellence and not just giving someone something, but you have to be credible in what you do. So I believe in being a mentor, and I believe in being mentored. So what I am doing is working with women at the sheriff's office, as well as women and young girls in the community, to say, hey, you can be in this position and you can go way higher than me and do much greater things than me. So thank you for that opportunity again today to be with all of you great women too.
Thank you, Chief O'Neill. Dr. Kelly Tice Wells.
Thank you. I love what's been said. I think I collected a couple of nuggets that I'm going to apply to my own life. And I will say that, the parents that I referred to earlier, my father was enlisted Navy, and my mom is a retired nurse. When I first said, hey, I think I want to be a nurse just like you, Mom, my mom said, no, I want you to do better than I did. And then my father said, you need to get yourself a seat at the table. And what he's always meant by that, and what I've carried forward, is the recognition upon whose shoulders I'm standing, number one, and number two, who doesn't get the opportunity to sit where I'm sitting, and what would they say if they were here? What needs would they profess? What would they want to have addressed? And so that's my approach to my work, both as, in my time as the first Black female health officer here in this county, and now in this role where I have the opportunity to build a health equity strategy for the largest insurer in our state. So I'm always very conscious of that. When I stepped into my health officer role, Sora Barbara Darby called me and set a lunchtime with me and offered her support of me as a mentor. And when someone of that magnitude, that level of excellence, gives of her time, it makes it impossible for you not to give of your time. And so I have worked to connect with young women that I've come across at various stages of my career, and I've maintained that contact to just try to impart into them what was placed in me. That's what keeps it spinning. That's, I think, what keeps us energized. And I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to be in the company of women like this.
What I took away from that, and I just want to say the nuggets that I took were, it's not about you. It's not about you. This was not given to me. I didn't get here by myself. And get a mentor and be a mentor. And those were awesome. So our time is winding down, ladies. Dr. Green, Chief O'Neill, Dr. Tice Wells, are there any burning last comments that you would like to leave us with this afternoon?
Well, I noticed that there were a couple of questions in the Q&A, and I tried to email the answers or type in the answers to some of those. So I hope that they will get their answers. But I think for African-American women, I want to encourage each of you, as Dr. Wells said, get the shot. It's our shot. Please go out and advocate for your family, your friends to get the vaccine. We are advocating to our employees, you need to get the vaccine so that we can get to a place, whatever the new normal or normalcy is considered. But for the education system, our children are struggling. They are doing the best that they can, whether they're learning remotely or in brick and mortar. And when we get everyone to this place of being vaccinated, we can spend more of our time caring for their social emotional needs, caring for their academic needs, because we're going to need them to step up. I just sent a letter to all my high school students telling them, I need you to step up. I need you to demonstrate kindness and respect, because the adults right now aren't doing it. So we need to turn to them to pick up the torch to move our country and our society forward. So I just really, I know that Dr. Wells can probably say it a whole lot better than me, but we really need to get out there and advocate for our people to get the shot.
Thank you.
If I could, I couldn't say it any better than you. I would add a point of emphasis, and it's something we all have to put on our radars. When I talk about the impacts of COVID on our communities, almost, I think it's 75% or close to that of minorities report that they know someone who's had the illness or who has died from the illness, as opposed to some 30% of white Americans. And that's critical. And many minorities have lost more than one friend or relative to this illness. When you think about the trauma of that, in addition to moving to remote learning, maybe changing households because the internet connection is better, the traumas that have been applied to our kids is significant. And we know that those traumatic events experienced in childhood translate into long-term health problems. We have long known that. So we have to be aware and watching, because it's going to show up in some interesting ways. Maybe it's discipline in the school setting, but maybe it's obesity or anxiety or panic. So I would just have everybody, adjust their level of awareness and knowledge about that, because these are additional traumas, those little microaggressions that we've experienced related to racism. Now we've got some physical and emotional traumas related to this illness. So we have to hold our babies close in the weeks and months and years to come.
Thank you, Dr. Tice Wells. Chief O'Neill.
Well, I would like to ask for everyone to really become involved with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I mean, oftentimes we have the same people that are calling and speaking to the issues that we have. I think we need some fresh ideas and some fresh people speaking to those things. So I'm really encouraging people to really to get involved, and to do that, you can become part of our Citizens Academy. We're really encouraging people to do that. It gives you a look inside the Sheriff's Office and what we do and why we do it. I would ask that you would visit our transparency page, because I think that will give you a lot of insight to to some of the questions that we have, and you just won't lean on what social media says, because a lot of times there is a one-sided story. And I'm not going to beat up on the media, but there are a lot of times where it's just one side that's reported about something and not a total picture. So I would encourage everyone to get a total picture of what we have, and that would be to www.transparency.jacksonville.sheriff.org. And I want to make sure that I actually have the correct address, and that is www.transparency.jacksheriff.org. And it's a biannual report that we put out in reference to everything from complaints that we receive, body-worn camera, and everything. So that's the biggest thing for me, is that I really would love people to get involved in that. And the other thing is I noticed that we have a question for me in reference to mental health, and I just want to speak to that just quickly. So what our protocol is. So I am a little bit removed from patrol right now, but what we do is that when we answer a call to mental health, we normally go with at least 2 officers. On some calls, there is a mental health counselor that will go with the officers to respond to the call. I wish I knew more specifically what they wanted me to talk about in reference to that call. But if you all can get me the information to the person that actually asked the question, I will most certainly send to them the information, the absolute information that they're asking about very specifically. So you all know how to reach me, and I will be more than happy to help them. So thank you.
Thank you, lady. And if you all can stick around, and if you see more questions in the chat, please feel free to respond. And that individual that posed that question to you, Chief O'Neill, if they want to indicate their email address, then we can send the answer specifically to the question they were asking. So I personally, on behalf of the Jacksonville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we're pleased that you spent Founders Day with us today, and thank you for your time and attention. You were quite enlightening and informative. Thank you so much. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Congresswoman Val Demings. Congresswoman Demings represents Florida's 10th congressional district in the U.S. House of Representatives. Representative Demings is a lifelong public servant who broke numerous glass ceilings in her rise through the Orlando Police Department and her election to Congress. Today, she works on the House Judiciary, Homeland Security, and Intelligence committees. In 2020, she broke another glass ceiling and continued her career as a guardian of the law when she became one of the first women and one of the first Black Americans to prosecute a presidential impeachment before the U.S. Senate. Congresswoman Demings is from Jacksonville, Florida. She is the first of her family to graduate from college, attending the Florida State University and graduating with a Bachelor of Science in Criminology and then a Master's in Public Administration. She began her work career in Jacksonville as a social worker before becoming inspired to move to Orlando to join the police force. Graduating from the police academy as her class president and receiving the Board of Trustees Award for overall excellence and earning the reputation of a smart, tenacious, and no-nonsense cop. She had a distinguished 27-year career with the Orlando Police Department, and in 2007, Congresswoman Demings made history when she was appointed to serve as Orlando's first female chief of police. Representative Demings is married to Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings and is a proud mother of 3 sons and a proud grandmother of 5. She holds an honorary doctorate of law degree from Bethune-Cookman University, as well as an honorary doctorates from Florida Technical College and City College of Fort Lauderdale. She is an active member of St. Mark's AME Church, a member of the Links Incorporated, a Silver Life member of NAACP, and a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time riding her Harley Davidson Road King Classic motorcycle. Congresswoman Demings had planned to be with us here today, but she is quite busy on the Hill taking care of the people's business today. But on yesterday, she thought it not robbery to videotape herself in giving the speech that she was going to share with us today. So at this time, I would like to show that special video presentation.
Good afternoon, Sorors of Jacksonville Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. As you all know, I have a special place in my heart for Jacksonville. It is the place where I was born and raised, the place where I graduated high school, and it is a joy for me to deliver the keynote address during your Founders Day observance and Delta Days at City Hall. Thank you to your president, your executive board, your social action chair for inviting me to share in this very special occasion. When we think about all that is going on today, the Constitution and the rule of law being threatened, a public health pandemic, the urgent need to reform our criminal justice system, and attempts to suppress our votes and steal an election, can we honor our founders enough? Can we honor them enough for their courage, their forward thinking, their passion, their strength, their ability to move forward and dare to be smart, dare to speak up, and dare to march on for a better, more inclusive America? On Wednesday, I was at the United States Capitol, the most iconic building in the world, representing the greatest democracy in the world. As we move to do the people's work and our constitutional duty to certify the Electoral College votes, officially declaring Joe Biden as the next president of the United States and Kamala Harris as the next vice president of the United States, when an angry mob stormed the Capitol, broke in, and members of Congress found ourselves scrambling, some on the floor, to safety. That was not 1865 or 1913 or 1920. This was 2021. I was reminded on Wednesday what it must have been like when the 22 courageous young women worked to hold America to its promise. We honor them today. And to you, my Sorors, I say, Happy Founders Day. My Sorors, during this critical time in our nation, I came today to ask these questions. Will we be able to carry the torch? Will we be able to finish the race? Will we be able to meet the moment? I love to quote a lot of great people. One of them is the Majority Whip, Jim Clyburn, who says this: we don't need to make America great again. America is great. It has always been great. That's not our challenge. Our challenge, it seems to me, is to make the greatness of America accessible and affordable to all Americans. 2020, yeah, that's the year we had all been waiting for. But 2020 proved to be a challenging year for all of us. You see, we started the year off with an impeachment and subsequent trial of the President of the United States. The Constitution, the rule of law, and our precious form of government, our democracy, were all being threatened, disregarded, ignored. In 2020, we found ourselves dealing with a public health pandemic, COVID-19, something we had never seen before, which required us all to do some things we had never done before. As you all know, over 20 million people across our nation have contracted the virus, and just shy of 400,000 have lost their lives. Florida's numbers are not good, and we know that African Americans have been disproportionately impacted by the virus. As a nation, we see millions of people out of work. And again, African Americans have been disproportionately impacted by the virus. We see small businesses suffering and some closing. And again, African Americans disproportionately impacted. In 2020, we saw civil unrest in all 50 states sparked by police misconduct. Now, you all know I spent 27 years in law enforcement, served as Orlando's first woman chief of police. And let me get this out of the way. What happened to George Floyd was brutal, it was senseless, and it was murder. And the persons responsible should be and are being held accountable. We as lawmakers and as a nation have an obligation to look at hiring standards, demand police departments reflect the diversity of the communities they serve and our nation. We must look at developing some national training standards. So regardless of the size of the agency, whether you're a 10-person agency or a 36,000-person agency, you receive the best training in use of force and de-escalation. I support establishing a national database so fired officers cannot just simply walk into another agency and sign up. We must hold bad officers accountable, and we will. But we must also deal with inequality and discrimination in all systems. Why would we simply hold America to its promise in law enforcement and not hold America to its promise in all things? In 1967, President Johnson's commission, comprised of educators, social workers, law enforcement, lawyers, community advocates, and others, looked at crime and policing in America. And you know what they concluded? Yes, we must hire the brightest and the best policemen. It was 1967. Yes, we must make sure that they have the best training and the best equipment. But we must look at poverty. We must look at unemployment. We must deal with substandard wages. We must deal with substandard housing. We must deal with substandard education. If we know every 26 seconds a child drops out of school, and we know that the overwhelming majority of persons in our prisons are Black and brown, and the overwhelming majority did not finish high school, could that be a clue that we need to invest more in our education system? We must do a better job at balancing the scales in all systems, not just our criminal justice system. My sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the question before us, with all the challenges our communities and our nation and our world is facing, Will Deltas meet the moment? My husband likes to say that the best indicator of future performance is to look at past performance. And what we are sure of is the fact that Delta's history is rich, full, and overflowing with academic excellence and public engagement. That we have been taught by our founders to use our brains, our voices, and our feet. We learned from the beginning that faith without works is dead. Deltas, we have and will continue to meet the moment each time we help a young person reach their full potential. We have and will meet the moment each time we make a difference in the lives of families through our 5-point programmatic thrust. Just look around or read our history books. There goes a Delta, working in our schools, serving in our military, addressing a public health pandemic, running the police department, owning her own business, fighting fires, assuming the title of Madam Secretary, serving as a superintendent, mayor, serving as an elected and consecrated bishop, impeaching a president of the United States on the Senate floor, and so much more. Jacksonville alumni, thank you for all that you do in my hometown to keep the torch burning and bring hope, joy, and inspiration. Deltas at the Capitol, certainly. Deltas at City Hall, you better know it. Deltas on the move, we would have it no other way. God bless you. Thank you. Keep up the great work and stay safe.
Our many thanks to Congresswoman Val Demings and her staff for getting us that exceptional video so that we could share it with you. Very timely video today. It has been my pleasure to serve as your mistress of ceremony as well as your moderator. And I want to again thank our powerful panel of guests, Dr. Diana Green for taking time out of your busy schedule, Chief O'Neill taking time out of your busy schedule, and Dr. Kelly Tice Wells for being with us here today and taking the time to speak with us about such a relevant topic as COVID-19. At this time, I welcome Attorney LaFonda Middleton, who will provide us with our closing comments as well as acknowledgments.
Thank you, Pat. On behalf of our illustrious sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Jacksonville Alumni Chapter, 388 members strong in Jacksonville, thank you for joining us today. We would like to acknowledge just a few people whose sacrifice has made this day possible. First, thank you to our bold and courageous president, Aurelia Ray Williams. Thank you to our dynamic duo tech team, who we could not have put this event on without. They have been with us every step of the way, teaching us amateurs how to navigate our way around Zoom. Rita Scott and Altoria White. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, for that video. Thank you to Superintendent Diana Green. What I heard from you is be better, smarter, build solid relationships, and balance family and work. Very important and crucial. Thank you to Chief Dolores O'Neill for the tidbit about having a great work ethic and allowing it to speak for itself. and reaching back and bringing others along. It's not always fun and easy to be the first, and especially the first female and the first African American female at that. So we need to reach back and bring others along with us. Thank you to Dr. Kelly Wells. This is our shot. I love it. I love it. We need to hear from professionals like you encouraging us to get the vaccine. And so thank you. I also heard you said be in a position so you can take a seat at the table. So we appreciate all of your words of encouragement. Congresswoman Val Demings for that awesome, amazing, fantabulous video presentation. It was right on point and very timely. Thankfully, we have seats at the table. As you know, and as you heard, we met with several of our city council members this week, yesterday and this morning. So we want to take an opportunity to just name those who thought it not robbery to sit and speak with us individually. They spoke with us all at separate times over these last 2 days. So thank you to those who answered the call. They were all invited, and the ones who were able to meet with us were Kevin Carrico, Aaron Bowman, Matt Carlucci, Joyce Morgan, Brenda Alexis Priestley Jackson, also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Randy White, Garrett L. Dennis, Leanna Cumber, Samuel Newby, Jacoby Pittman, also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Randy DeFore. Thank you to the council. I must also thank our committee members, our fearless leader for the Social Action Committee, Patricia Gillum-Sams and Irene Walker. Thank you to our co-chair, our chair of this subcommittee, Debbie Price, and to our committee members, Kimberly Holloway, Dr. Gracie McAsler, Katrina McCray, and thank you to all of the ladies who were able to join in with the interviews today with the City Council and yesterday. Thank you to all of our program participants on today. You all have been phenomenal and worked tirelessly, and the program was phenomenal. Deltas are meeting the moment as called on by Val Demings. We are moving onward and upward, and we invite you to move onward and upward with us. We hope you have enjoyed our luncheon presentation. This concludes our program.